Chessbots like Stockfish and AlphaZero have long since taken the throne of greatest chess minds in the world, but are not particularly accessible. I prefer talking to a more user-friendly bot. So today, I decided to play some chess against ChatGPT. The catch? ChatGPT does not know how to play chess, but is somehow extremely confident that it does. I begin the game with the most basic opening move in the game of chess, e4. ChatGPT answers with e5. I develop my knight to f3 and attack its pawn, which it defends with knight to c6. After bishop c4, knight f6, and knight c3, we have reached a very common opening position. Here, ChatGPT decides to make the game more exciting and attacks with d5. After some counting, I decide to take. ChatGPT takes with knight takes on d5. I also play knight takes d5, which leads ChatGPT to have a small breakdown. But eventually it allows the move. I start thinking I'm winning, as I'm up a complete piece in materia. But ChatGPT finds a brilliant move that I never even considered. Knight takes on d5. I decide to take the now unprotected pawn on e5, when ChatGPT plays the, let's call it unconventional, move queen takes d8 check. Since the queen is already on d8, this means absolutely nothing. I decide to castle my king and get it to safety, when ChatGPT develops its bishop with a very creative move, bishop to f4. I move my rook to e1 in hopes of landing a discovered check when moving my knight, and ChatGPT moves its own knight to f6, which allows me to spring my trap. I play knight to c6, which does two things at once. My rook puts the king in check, and my knight attacks the queen. Since the check has to be dealt with, I will be able to win the queen and gain a serious advantage. But then ChatGPT plays an incredible move I could have never seen coming. King to f1. This is an intense position. If I can find the one correct move, I win the game. Otherwise, I lose immediately. Luckily, I find it. Rook takes f1. Checkmate. Of course, a match between two chess giants, such as ChatGPT and myself, cannot be decided by a single game. Therefore, we agree to a rematch. With a twist. For every move that I make, ChatGPT will be allowed to make 2 moves. Now, you might be saying, this doesn't make any sense. All it needs to do is give 1 check, and then, since you can't move, the game is over. And you're right. My counter-argument: it's ChatGPT. There are many things I am worried about. This is not one of them. Since the extra rule gives me a massive disadvantage, I once again start as white. This time with the move d4, the second most popular opening move. ChatGPT responds with a standard d5 and a sensible c6. My next move is developing my knight to f3, similarly to the earlier game. ChatGPT then plays knight to c6, taking its own pawn in a strategic sacrifice of material, and also e6, stabilizing its center. I respond with knight c3, further developing my pieces. Little do I realize, this is actually a massive blunder, because in this position, Black can simply play the following sequence of moves. Knight to f6, and then the obvious d takes c3 pawn move. I take back with b takes c3, to which ChatGPT responds with first bishop to b4 check, and then knight to f6, which I guess means there is a new knight coming in, replacing the old one. I proceed to take the bishop on b4, to which ChatGPT responds with bishop takes c3 check, and knight f6. Once again, Black replaces its knight with a fresh one. This is a very important strategy. Many amateur players allow their pieces to run out of stamina in the middle of the game. This strategy will keep the horses fresh and full of energy for the battle ahead. I defend my king with bishop d2, and ChatGPT goes for a trade of bishops on d2, with check, and knight f6? I imagine this particular horse might have had an issue with asthma. I take on d2 with my queen as the bishop is undefended. Or so I thought. It turns out ChatGPT had a bigger plan. In this position, there is exactly one move that wins the game for black. If you'd like, you can try and pause the video to find it. The move is, of course, bishop takes on d2 check, followed by knight f6. ChatGPT has access to additional extra armies that I was unaware of. This is a very popular gambit called the cheating gambit. I take the bishop with my knight, but once again ChatGPT finds the best move. Bishop takes d2 and knight to f6. My only move is to take the bishop with my king. This position is very interesting actually, as despite the massive difference in pieces, this is generally considered a draw. However, ChatGPT proves yet again that AI has long overtaken the human mind when it comes to chess, and introduces what I can only imagine will be new theory for future chess students to learn. Bishop takes d2 check and knight f6, winning both the game and the record for most horses used in a chess game.